بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وعن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال يضحك الله سبحانه وتعالى إلى رجلين يقتل أحدهما الآخر يدخلان الجنة. Hazrat Abu Hurairah radiallahu ta'ala anhu narrates that verily Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is reported to have said that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala laughs with pleasure looking at two people. One of the two of them, he kills the other person, but both of them enter into Jannah. يُقَاتِلُ هَذَا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَيُقْتَلْ. This one, he fights in the path of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala and he is made shaheed, he is killed in the path of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. ثُمَّ يَتُوبُ اللَّهُ عَلَى الْقَاتِلِ. Then Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala turns his attention to the killer. فَيُسْلِمُ فَيُسْتَشْهَدْ. Then the killer, he accepts Islam and he is also made shaheed. So this is the kindness of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. That at one time the killer, he was on the side of the kuffar and he killed a mu'min. And the mu'min, he also got Jannah. And later on that kafir, Allah gives him hidayat, he accepts Islam. And when he accepts Islam, he again fights now on the side of the Muslim, he becomes shaheed. Both of them enter into Jannah. This is the rahmat, this is the mercy of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Babu sabr. The next chapter is the chapter on sabr. Sabr actually means a person must remain steadfast on those things that the nafs dislikes. When a person, he goes through some difficulty, some problems in his life, this is disliked by the nafs. The nafs likes easiness, likes enjoyment. So a person remains steadfast at that time. This is what is called sabr. This is a quality that was found particularly in all the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam. The Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam went through the most difficult of tests. Ashaddul balai al-Anbiya. The most difficult of tests was experienced by the Anbiya alayhimu salatu wasalam. ثُمَّ الْأَمْثَلْ فَالْأَمْثَلْ. Then those that are like the Anbiya, closest to the Anbiya, and those that are like them, they go through the most amount of tests. It is mentioned that this is a sign of complete iman, that when a person, he goes through some test, some difficulty in his life, and at that time he makes sabr, he is happy, oh, this is the decision of my Allah. This has come from the side of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. He is happy with the decision of Allah. This is a sign of his iman being complete. And a person that makes sabr, he goes through that difficulty. Later on, Allah will give him ease again. Allah will make it very, very easy for that person. Allah will give him peace of mind. All his matters will be solved. The ulama have written that there are three categories of sabr. The first category is as-sabru ala ta'ah, to make sabr on the obedience of Allah ta'ala. Namaz is fard. This is the obedience of Allah ta'ala. At the time of Fajr, to wake up early in the morning, especially when it is cold, and now to come to the masjid. So a person needs to persevere and get up and come to the masjid. So this is sabr on the obedience of Allah ta'ala. The second category is as-sabru anil ma'asiyah, that to make sabr on the disobedience, turning away from the disobedience of Allah. A person, he wants to do something wrong, but he thinks to himself, this is against the decision of Allah ta'ala. This is against the happiness of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. So I cannot disobey Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. He makes sabr at that time, he gives up that guna. So that's the second category of sabr. And the third category of sabr is as-sabru ala al-musibah, that a person, he makes sabr on some difficulty, some calamity that comes on his path, to such an extent that if a person, a thorn has to prick him, on that also a person is rewarded in the court of Allah ta'ala. Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi rahmatullahi, he was a great Sufi of his time. He explained sabr. He said, what is sabr? He said, a person, he swallows something that is bitter. Nobody likes something that is bitter. So he swallows something that is bitter, but he doesn't even frown also. So in other words, that difficulty, you go through that difficulty, but at that time also a person is happy. This is a decision of Allah. He's not unhappy with the decision of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. This is what is sabr. Some ulama have mentioned that when a person, he goes through difficulties in his life, and at that time he gets closer to Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. At that time now he starts going more to the masjid. Now he starts waking up for tahajjud namaz, starts making dua, he starts reading Quran Sharif. This is a mercy of Allah ta'ala. Allah ta'ala is drawing this person close. And when a person goes through difficulty in his life, he's angry with Allah. He doesn't want na'uzubillah. He doesn't want to come to the masjid. He doesn't want to read namaz. He doesn't want to make dua. All this he doesn't want to do. Then why am I going through this difficulty? This is the indication that this is adab from the side of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. Hazrat Umar radiallahu ta'ala said that every time I went through difficulty in my life, he says that three bounties I found in that. He says the first is Allah ta'ala still kept me with my iman. I went through that difficulty, but nothing happened to my iman. My iman was totally intact. The second thing he said, that the difficulty was only up to that certain point that I went through difficulty. It could have been much more worse than that also, but it was only up to a certain point that Allah Ta'ala kept it. And the third thing he says, that as I went through that difficulty, every time I reminded myself that at the end Allah Ta'ala is going to grant you great reward. And I took solace from this. So if a person keeps these things in mind, when he goes through a little bit of problem in his life, we find that it will become very, very easy for him in that also. There also a person will have contentment and happiness. Will continue from here, inshallah.